Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Lamakaan. So, I have the greatest pleasure in welcoming Karthikeya. Few days back, we received a message on the Facebook Messenger. It was addressed to Farhan, requesting him to consider for a book launch at Lamakaan. So, I was waiting for Farhan to reply, and then I thought Farhan may be busy, so let me reply back to him. So then he immediately asked me to share the numbers. So we exchanged the numbers. We started conversing. So last Friday we met. For the first time, I met Rajav at an event, Indian Demography Myths and Facts. That's the event. And he raised some pertinent questions. And then the conceptualization of this event happened back then. He said it's going to be a small event. I just wanted to, read and recite few of the poems that I wrote. I said, yeah, we have a film screening at 7 o'clock. We can push it back to 7:30. We are celebrating the cinema of Ang Lee. And he said, I'm leaving next week, so this is the only day available. So there we are. So please join me in welcoming Raja Karthikeya.
Namaste, good evening. Thank you so much, Naeem, for that lovely introduction. I love it when things come together. And serendipity has probably been the leitmotif. It's been, you could say, the word that has described most of my personal journey and the journey of my pen. Uh, you're all here to hear some of my poetry. I don't believe I'm a poet. I believe I have been someone who is a musafir, who happens to learn wherever he stops. And along the way, I have been able to put some of those learnings into words. Having said this, I would like to request this book, which has been a label of love, which has taken over, consists of over 30 years of my work, my poetry. And I'd like to have this released by my family who are here. So I'd like to request my parents, my first teachers, and my publisher, Mr. Vijay Kumar, was not able to make it, but I'd like to request my mother, Ms. Lalita Kumari, my father, Mr. Walishwar, to please come and uh, inaugurate this book, which was actually published last year, but it has taken its own sweet time. Sharing with you what words mean to me. People often say that poetry is about, thank you, is, uh, is actually the trade of words. But words, some people believe that poetry consists of words that are meant, that consist of reflections in solitude, as Wordsworth said. So it's all about digging deep into your soul and bringing words out. For me, words always exist in a certain context. For me, the inquest, the digging deep into the soul, happens in response to certain stimuli from outside. When I first started writing poetry, I think I was maybe 7 or 8. And my poetry was mostly, I would say, triggered by places I visited, things I saw. And that's where, can I have Naeem, the first slide? One of the first places that I visited, we used to live in, we lived in different parts of India when I was growing up. And when I came to Hyderabad and I saw Golconda, and I remember being quite captivated by this city on a hill. And it spoke to me. And that's when the Catapult of Time, I first wrote this poem, which it was a story of Golconda, and it's the story as it came to me. The Catapult of Time. He stares at me from the rock. He stares at me from the rock, an edifice of stately stature, enclaving sunny days and nights with solid Grecian grandeur. And shrouded in starlit nights and romantic ecstasies of yore, he speaks of vicious brethren and midnights of bloody gore, of brutal might and despotic power, phobics of rebellion he bred, of lovely charming concubines and scheming swords in bed, of manacled hands and strategic courtships, of bought loyalties and treacherous friendships, of haunting battles and lilting tunes of lyres, of costly atonements for diplomatic quagmires, of empty granaries but bursting treasuries, he conveys eloquent, of fairy tales cut short on earth and bleeding purple hearts, fractured lives stuck together by honor, golden veils on domestic pallor, chivalrous men of valor whose names ring in the echelons of immortality, and those unknown soldiers forgotten for all their bravery. He stands unmoved against the zephyrs of change, stoic, immune to grief, tears, and pain. And like a phoenix rises to glory again and again. Ageless in time he stands, a place in my heart he commands. Thank you. These were the early days, the innocent days, I should say, when I believed that poetry meant describing nature and describing ideas that come to you when you are in nature. And that's how came Merman, the next one, please. Which was, I was born in Visakhapatnam. I grew up by the sea. To me, a walk by the sea was always something that I thought everyone in the world did, until I realized that living by the sea is actually a luxury. People pay extra for waterfront property. But somewhere, I came to understand that the sea has many stories. The sea has many lessons for us. Coming to the shore every day, the way a wave comes to the shore and crashes upon the rocks, goes back, and yet Another wave comes, another wave follows it, and yet another. The sea never gives up, never gives up. So I thought, what if the sea were embodied in a person? What if the sea, not a mermaid, but a man who was so much in love with the sea, he did not live in the sea, but he lived in love with the sea. And that's who the mermaid was, the merman was. Merman. And I was inspired those days by a lot of 18th century English. So some of it reads a bit like rhyme of the like Coleridge's poetry. So please excuse me if some of the words are swallowed. It's for some of the syllables are swallowed. It's for a reason. Merman. Oft he walked to meet the dancing waves on the shore. And they said in lives gone by, he'd been the merman of sea lore. He never spoke a word. He never spoke a word. Not a word ever spoke he. But when the waves burst upon the rocks, he clapped his hands in glee. He gazed into the glistening sunset as if he searched for something, something strange, mysterious, and of storms the sea would bring. He rarely blinked an eye as he looked at the shells in the sand, picking the smallest with utmost care, as though he held a magic wand. Some said he was insane to waste his clock away. He had loved the sea for so long, his fluttering hair was grey. Yet he marveled at the milky foam, the creaky music of the gulls. He heard the ocean in his heart and not just in seashells. Yes, they say, he still lives around, clapping his hands in childish glee. Yes, they say he still lives around, clapping his hands in childish glee. So if you ever hear the sea happy, be sure it is he. But soon thereafter, I began to see that no matter how beautiful nature was, man and man's nature was not quite the same. In fact, it was in 1992 that I first became aware of how dark and defective human nature could be. The next one, please. In 91, started from 91 to 96, in fact, it lasted, the siege of Sarajevo. I was 11, 12 years old at that time. And when I first heard about the civil war in Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia is a country was a country a lot like India, very heterogeneous, mixed with people from different ethnicities, different religions. And in fact, as some of you may recall, Tito, the founder of, the president of Yugoslavia, founded the non-aligned movement along with Nehru and Nasser. So Yugoslavia we took it for granted. It was a country. And yet, for the first time, we saw a country fall apart. A country completely fall apart based on deep prejudices. Prejudices that resulted in brother killing brother. Prejudices that led to unseen, unparalleled violence. Things that we hadn't seen since the Second World War. And for a child of 12 years, living in India, watching on TV, what was happening so far away in Bosnia, it was something I cannot explain. Many years later, in 2023, I went to Sarajevo. And there was a bridge in Sarajevo, where everyone who passed was shot dead by snipers from either side. And that bridge, pictures of that bridge, inspired this poem. So I went to that very bridge and read this poem there as a small tribute to all the lives that were lost in the Civil War. Oh, Sarajevo. Thousands are dead. Millions await death. A shattered nation wearing a wilted wreath. Gone are the days of the golden spring. No more a jewel in the Balkan ring. All that remains is a rotten mass, scavenged flesh and burnt grass. The Serb, the Croat, and the Muslim, struggling for survival and supremacy. None seems able to stop them, not even Western diplomacy. The rival tanks continue to roar. No mercy, they say. This is war. And the child of Sarajevo, none pities his woes. What is his sin to have so many foes? When will this genocide of innocence end? When will this genocide of innocence end? Peace does not seem to be round the bend. And while the shells continue to burst, Sarajevo's children are dying of thirst. Thank you. In 92, this felt it felt that people have learned from all this. That this was the end. Or perhaps that civil wars far away, somewhere in Africa, West Africa, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Congo, DRC, we thought these were all, and it happened so far away. It does not affect us. But we saw that even the year before, in 91, that no matter how far away events seem to be, they will come home to us. They will affect us. Because in this global village, everyone is just 2 doors away. May I have the next one, please? So in 91, when the first Gulf War happened, the Gulf War, actually, in Iraq, it was the first war to be telecast, the first war on our TV screens. అప్పుడు నేను తెలుగులో రాసేవాడిని. అండ్ తెలుగులో నాకు తెలుగులో చదువుకున్న పెద్ద పెద్ద పదాలు అప్పుడప్పుడే నేర్చుకుంటున్నాను. కానీ అప్పుడప్పుడే నాకు ఒక వార్ అంటే ఒక దూరంగా ఉన్న ఒక కొంచెం భయంగా ఉండేది, కొంచెం ఎక్సైటింగ్గా ఉండేది, ఒక ఇది ఏదో మారుతున్నది మన ప్రపంచంలో అనిపించేది. అప్పుడు రాసిందే జ్వాలాముఖి. జ్వాలాముఖి మధ్యంలో యుద్ధాగ్ని జ్వాలల్లో రగులుతూంది ఈనాటి మానవాళి అంతా. జ్వాలాముఖి మధ్యంలో యుద్ధాగ్ని జ్వాలలలో రగులుతూంది ఈనాటి మానవాళి అంతా. క్షిపణుల విస్ఫోటనలో శతఘ్నుల విజృంభణలో చెరుగుతోంది మానవత్వం ఆనవాలు అంతా. క్షిపణుల విస్ఫోటనలో శతఘ్నుల విజృంభణలో చెరుగుతోంది మానవత్వం ఆనవాలు అంతా. నియంతలు నిరంకుశులకు నరకంలో ఇది దీపావళి. నియంతలు నిరంకుశులకు నరకంలో ఇది దీపావళి. నేటి తరం నాయకులు వారికి అర్పించే శ్రద్ధాంజలి. దట్ వాస్ 91. 25 years later, దానికి 25 సంవత్సరాల తర్వాత నేను ఇరాక్లో ఉన్నాను మరొక యుద్ధంలో. ఈసారి దీంట్లో ఈ యుద్ధాన్ని ఆపేయడానికి, ఈ యుద్ధాన్ని ఒక అందరికీ ఒక న్యాయపరంగా ఆగడానికి దోహదం చేసిన వారిలో ఒక చిన్న నా వంతు వృత్తిపరంగా నేను పనిచేయడం జరిగింది. ఇంతటితో యుద్ధాలు ఆగిపోతాయి అనుకున్నాం, కానీ దాని తర్వాత మరొక యుద్ధం నడుస్తూనే వచ్చింది. అందుకనే మీరు ఈరోజు ఏ న్యూస్ పేపర్ ఎత్తినా, ఏ టీవీలో ఏ ఛానల్ ఆన్ చేసినా మొట్టమొదట ఒకప్పుడు ఏదో స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ పెరిగిందనో లేక ఫలానా బిల్డింగ్ ఇనాగరేషన్ అన్న న్యూస్ వచ్చేది. ఇప్పుడు మొట్టమొదటి న్యూస్ యుద్ధంలో ఇవాళ ఇంతమంది చనిపోయారు, ఈరోజు ఇంతమంది మీద బాంబులు పడ్డాయి. ఈ కంటెక్స్ట్లో, ఈ నేపథ్యంలో రాసిందే కాల్పుల విరమణ. స్టాప్ ద వార్, స్టాప్ ద వార్. ఆగమంటే ఆగుతారా? ఆగకుండా సాగుతారా? అగ్నితో చెలగాట మాడే అగ్ని ఎరిగిన జీవులు. ఆగమంటే ఆగుతారా? ఆగకుండా సాగుతారా? అగ్నితో చెలగాట మాడే అగ్ని ఎరిగిన జీవులు. క్రోధాన్ని రోజు సాకుతారా? బూడిదేసి తాగుతారా? ప్రళయమంటూ మాటలాడే రుధిర సాగర దీవులు. క్రోధాన్ని రోజు సాకుతారా? బూడిదేసి తాగుతారా? ప్రళయమంటూ మాటలాడే రుధిర సాగర దీవులు. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. సరే, అగ్ని పేరిట ప్రతీకారం, అరాచకతపు అధోసారం. అగ్ని ఆపని ప్రతి వారం, అగ్ని పెంచే అనాచారం. It's just war. It's a just war. భక్తి కోసం చేసే రణాలు గంపెడు. వ్యక్తి కోసం, విముక్తి కోసం ఏ కారణాలకు చంపెడు. మెల్లగా చెప్పూరికుంటే వీరి తరమా ఆగడం. అందరూ తల తిప్పుకుంటే ఆగుతుందా ఆగడం. మెల్లగా చెప్పూరికుంటే వీరి తరమా ఆగడం. అందరూ తల తిప్పుకుంటే ఆగుతుందా ఆగడం. We shall strike at a time and a place of our choosing. అంటే అనుకూలమైన సమయంలో ఆలోచించి ఆవేశపడతారా? అనుకోలేని అధములను అలవోకగా దంచి పెడతారా? చిన్న ప్రశ్న. భయంతో వణుకుతుందా అదుపులేని అహంకారం? శవాల నుంచి ఉబుకుతుందా మీరు కోరే పరిష్కారం? భయంతో వణుకుతుందా అదుపులేని అహంకారం? శవాల నుంచి ఉబుకుతుందా మీరు కోరే పరిష్కారం? ఏం మీకులాగే వారు కూడా వారిలాగే మీరు కూడా గుణపాఠమంటూ వాగుతారు, మరణ బాటన సాగుతారు. సీజ్ ఫైర్. మాటలొదిలి తూటాలతో ప్రహసనమా? మందుగొండు కిక్కు మరిగి ఫిరంగుల పొగ వ్యసనమా? మాటలొదిలి చర్చలొదిలి తూటాలతో ప్రహసనమా, మందు గొండు కిక్కు మరిగి ఫిరంగుల పొగ వ్యసనమా, అంతులేని యుద్ధాలకు అంతులేని యుద్ధాలకు విశ్రాంతి నీయ జాలరా, స్వర్గమంటూ అడగబోము స్వర్గమంటూ అడగబోము, నరకాన్ని కాసే పాపరా. థ్యాంక్ యూ. It was clear to me that our world will remain unequal. And over the years, I looked at various solutions to perhaps address inequality in our society. I felt that there is a solution. If all of us are equal, perhaps it will be a better world. Sometimes I was thought to be a nationalist. Sometimes I was thought to be a leftist. In college, I was sure enough, attracted to various ideals. Next one, please. And so I often thought, if only we had, and those days, I used to think that if there were a world in which we could all perhaps have an equal opportunity, then perhaps with the elimination of these differences, we would also end any possibility of conflict. But then I came to understand that ideologies are a problem. All ideologies are a problem. Certainly, communism, at least the way it was practiced, certainly failed in a big way. And the more I talk to people who actually lived in countries where they fought fascism or where they fought Marxism and communism, I saw that no ideology really held the answer. No ideology that is imposed on people ever holds the answer. So Red was a poem I wrote in anguish at this disillusionment with what I saw was happening with communist ideals. Red. Searing the hooves of the empire's steeds, searing the hooves of the empire's steeds, unshackling from misery enslaved breeds. Searing the hooves of the empire's steeds, unshackling from misery enslaved breeds, Red, the liberator, dies his death. The determined red of flaming coal, the determined red of flaming coal, the red that was your faith and soul, Red, the victor, dies his death. And this is addressed to everyone who was a communist at that time. Your wine has whitened, and so too your veins. The banner bears cowardly white stains. Red, the unbeaten, dies his death. Where is the capital, the manifesto, our rights? Red, the haunted, exorcised at nights. Red, the rejuvenator, dies his death. Where's the sweat of pain on your brow? Frugality and conscience, where did they go? Red, the redeemer, dies his death. Your steadfast comrades bled in vain. Your steadfast comrades bled in vain. You no more believe in sharing grain. Red, the equalizer, dies his death. Daltonized by green and power, quistlings under the bourgeois bower, Red, the honor, dies his death. Folded fists rise, a lone voice cries. Red defies, Red never dies. Thank you. There were times when I went back to visiting the poetry, what brought me to poetry, which was nature. And that escape sometimes gave me a chance to, to see how there is a possibility for man to revert to its original nature, perhaps by, um, or perhaps by learning from nature, or by immersing himself or herself completely in nature. And that's where I wrote The Tryst. This was the idea is sometimes you see you are that there is sunset is happening, and yet you see the moon all ready to come even before the sun has set. You see stars and in the sky, and you wonder, this twilight, isn't this what most of life is like? You're barely left before somebody else is ready to take your place, and you wonder often if it is life imitating nature or if it is nature imitating life. And that's where I wrote The Tryst. To excuse me, sometimes I have to find it in my own book. So, may I have the next? Fulfilling her tryst with the Platonic waters, bidding farewell with her golden arms, scribbling in haste on the day's register, handing over office to her celestial deputy, the sun canters towards her daily destiny, to share her warmth with other progeny. The creaky gulls sound their clarions as the great leader passes. Soon they too must beat a hasty retreat. For when their leader's silvery comrade steps in, his envy hates to see a rival's old faithfuls. The silver man's spies, his men in black, will dot the sky, peering through a million peepholes for rebels and revolts that threaten the moon's reign of darkness. Soon, of course, his regime will end. But it will take a great battle for Aton to regain her place. Bloody streaks in the dawn sky will stain her triumph. And as she resumes her glorious sojourn, defeated but not dead, the moon looks forlorn. Thank you. And it was in this spirit. May I have the next one, please? That I wrote. I've always, the sun was always a metaphor, that an element that frequently comes into my poetry. But sometimes you need, and the sun came into my life even in dark times. I think as for most of us, COVID-19 was not an easy period. We can never forget it, and nor should we. I was privileged that along with a few friends, Anuj is here, we did whatever we could to combat the Delta wave. We helped a small group that I organized called Project Madad. We helped rebuild a village that was hit by COVID, and it became India's first COVID resilient village, Rajannapet. And thank you. And I feel at that time, when everyone felt our spirits had sunk, and it felt that there was no end to this tunnel, once again, there was hope. And there is always hope. So with that, in that spirit, I wrote, the sun refuses to rise. The sun refuses to rise. The sun refuses to ascend today. What is the point, he asks? of rising only to set. To what eternal end is my Sisyphean task? I stay silent, for I know all that rise must fall, all that drop rebound. Neither cycles nor circles explain it. Stock prices, tree leaves, contours of land, hopes and windswept grains of sand. Like a sonar boy, like a sonar boy, I plumb the depths of gravity to retrieve from the abyss of grief a cloud of levity. I explain to the sun, I explain to the sun that he never sets at all. It's the earth that bows and rises in the sun's court each day. So, in moments, especially when sometimes in my work, I often encounter people who have gone through tremendous challenges in their life, challenges that most of us cannot imagine. I mean, for us, if the if the help doesn't come in at home on time, or if the Uber we took is stuck in traffic, it's a problem. But when you meet people who have had who've been through unthinkable pain, then everything becomes relative. And at such times, we have to deal with, we cannot solve all the problems that we see, but we can give them a shoulder, and sometimes they give us a shoulder, because they make us understand that you can go on in life no matter how many times you fall. You can lift yourself up, and you can keep walking, and you need to keep walking. And that's the title of that's what this poem is about. Keep walking. In the recesses of the mind, in the recesses of the mind, somewhere, in the recesses of the mind, somewhere I've left behind my life as I knew it once, in a cocoon for 9 months. In a cocoon for 9 months, I look to recede once in a while. My song rebounds in the wilderness and comes back bathed in a smile. I search all within me for a goal. I search all within me for a goal. I look to be redeemed as a whole. One day I win, or I may lose. One day I win, or I may lose. It is not always what I choose. My life follows its very own way. But I don't spectate, I just play. My life follows its very own way. I don't spectate, I just play. Thank you. And that brings me to, what is the walk for? What should you be walking for? What is the purpose of it all? The purpose of poetry, as I said, to me at least, is about responding to stimuli from outside and then bringing out from the depths of your soul whatever this stimuli has planted deep in your soul. You bring it out, you uproot those emotions. And sometimes in the process, you come to understand what our purpose of being here is all about. To me, our purpose as human beings is to make the world better for other human beings. To me, poetry then is a way and needs to be a means, not just of stringing words together, but of bringing people together. And that's why, next one, please. This is my concluding poem for the day. Someone who has been a great inspiration for me. I could say that several great poets have have had an influence on me, from Tennyson to Pablo Neruda to Mahmoud Darwish to Rudyard Kipling. But most of all, Tagore. And that's why our Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore's poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear. There's another poet that had an influence on me, whose poems are in the book, Sri Sri, and I have done my some small humble attempts to translate them into English. But here, I would like to talk about Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore's famous poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear. As you know, Where the Mind is Without Fear was written before independence. And it was written voicing his hope for the future of India. And I'd just like to remind you of his lines. Where the mind is without fear, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. When I read these lines of Tagore, in fact, I think most of us read it in school, I often thought, it was very hard to understand how people felt about India before independence. But I did think, he appeals to God. He sees God as a father. And I also saw that, Tagore talks about, reason not losing its way, because there was the tension, communal tensions that were that did set the nation on fire back then. And yet, for all of Tagore's hopes, I think India made a lot of progress. We've come quite far since then, but we still have a way to go. And that's where I've attempted to continue these lines. Where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. And here Tagore stops, and I resume. Where the mind is without fear, where we worship hard reason, where the mind is without fear, where we worship hard reason, where voice carries no hate and peace prevails all season, where wars have not splintered our world into frozen factions, where wars have not splintered our world into frozen factions, where words echo thoughts and thoughts equal actions, where truth has not sunk into the quicksand of lies, where truth has not sunk into the quicksand of lies, where the clamor of trolls has not drowned out cries, where history has not turned us into me versus the other, where screams on TV screens have not lost me a brother. Where history has not turned us into me versus the other, where screams on TV screens have not lost me a brother. Where our love of our land respects your love of yours, where our love of our land respects your love of yours, where roofs in slums stay as sturdy as towers, where doors of opportunity open to skill and effort, where doors of opportunity open to skill and effort, and all beings of this species can claim an equal worth. Where planet precedes profit, where planet precedes profit, and future precedes the present. Where planet precedes profit and future precedes the present. Lead us to the heaven mothers that our fathers in Khadi dreamt. Thank you. Jai Hind. And with that hope, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you. We have just about maybe 3 minutes, if at all. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very proud. There is this one poem. I have two questions actually. Did you ever attempt haiku?
Yes, I have, but
In all the languages that you speak was haiku.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, but I think haikus are best written in Japanese. And it's very difficult to take, just as, sonnets. No matter, because as they say, chandasu, there are certain forms of poetry that are peculiar to every language. And I think no matter how much we try to force, it's best not to, superimpose them on another language. So, yes, when I was learning Japanese, I tried for a bit, but I'm not decent enough to be shared. Not good
Okay.
enough.
Now, this poem called The Drumbeat of Victory.
Jai
I
Hind.
too offered a flame to the inferno that consumed the world. I too shed a tear that rained down in torrents on the universe. I too raised a cry that roared as a tempest in the heavens. This is three sentences, but there's very layered. And of course, as you've written here, it's translated from Jaya Bheri by Sri Sri. So, what is the thought behind this?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. This is actually a translation of my effort to translate Nenu Saitam. And although this is, a reading of my poetry, I have to say, great poetry, no matter by whom, leaves a mark on you. So when Sri Sri writes, and this came in several movies as well, Nenu Saitam, Nenu Saitam Prapanchagniki Samidhinokkati Ahutichanu. Nenu Saitam Bhuvana Ghoshaku Asru Okkati Dhara Posanu. Nenu Saitam Vishwasantiki Verri Guntukanichi Mosanu. This is, it's an earnest desire, it's an expression, it's a desire, it's a hope, but it's also an expression of the individual, saying that no individual is insignificant. No one can say that, what can we do? The world is like this. You heard some of my lines earlier about war, about conflict. We talked about COVID-19. We always feel, what can we do? And it is my fervent and absolute belief, which I can say that my experience has proven time and again, that it is not true that we can do nothing. In fact, every individual can make a difference. And every individual voice that is raised, every individual hand that is given, every step that is taken makes a difference to changing the world and to making it a better place. So that's why it is indeed, the poem, the title of the poem is Nenu Saitam, the drumbeat of victory. But to me, it's just as well that the title of the poem can be that everyone, everyone can make a difference. Each of us can make a difference. And when each of us believe that we can make a difference, that's when the world will be different. So with that earnest hope, okay, we have one more question. But, and that was the inspiration for this translation. Thank you. Sir, please.
Hi. I just caught the last of your poem. Pardon me for that. So I got stuck in the traffic. So my question is a supplement to the question that the previous questioner asked regarding Nenu Saitam. So do you think that poetic sampling, I'm referring to it as that, the way music sampling is done. So do you think that poetic sampling is a means of recurrence of thematic relevance for the individual poet, or do you believe that it represents the relevance for the society?
I'll try to, I'll tell you as simple as I can, understand this issue. To me, poetry always exists in a context, as I said. So it's very difficult, when you pick, poems are written in the context of one's life, in the context of one's experiences. So when we, you can write a book for somebody else's reading, you can, create a story, you can perhaps make a movie for somebody as a telling. Even movies, as you can see, when you see some of the older movies, you can't really relate to the characters or to the setting because the world has moved from when the movie was made. The same thing, I think with poetry, it's even deeper because poetry is, I don't believe, is a form of entertainment per se. I think poetry is a form of expression. Poetry is actually the most beautiful form of communication that there exists. You can tell someone that this is what is going on inside me, this is what I feel, or you can express it poetically, and in which case you are sharing something that's far deeper. And that's why poetic sampling, taking, plucking things from here and there, you can. I'll tell you where it works. Where it works is, that's why you need to put it together in new context. That's why, for example, when I was reading my poems earlier, I read Jwalamukhi Madhyanlo, which I wrote in 1991. And in 1991, completely different context. The world was different. But when I read it now, Jwalamukhi Madhyanlo, Yuddhagni Jwalallo, Ragulutundi Inati Manavali Anta, it still has relevance. It still has meaning. Because in this context, if you were to, bring this, it's a bit like ikebana, actually. You can take disparate flowers and you can string them together as long as you have the right context to it. It looks beautiful. And that's an art in itself, I'd say, the sampling. Yes.
This is with regards to the last poem you were reading when I caught most of it. And I saw a lot of idealism in there. So my question is this: does the dreamy idealism of poetry betray practicality, or does it betray the sensibility of the society?
Well, I'll just say this much, that what's the point of poetry if you can't set an ideal? You have to express, but you should also show a better world. You should also be able to convey and say that, it's not, I wouldn't say it's idealism. This is, as I said, where, when I say, where the mind is without fear, where we worship hard reason, where the voice carries no hate and peace prevails all season. To me, this ideal is, it's not just an idea. This is a destination. And I believe that if we don't see the destination, sometimes it's very hard to step forth. Or even if we step forth, we don't know in what direction we are headed, in what direction we should be headed. And I can certainly say that it is a job of poets, it is a job of every kavi, every shayar, to set that destination, to paint the image of the destination, so that it inspires generations to come. And so that the transmission happens and everyone knows that this is the path on which they need to keep going, and at the end of which, there is that metaphor of a destination. So it's not just a poet's job, I should say, it's a poet's duty to paint that destination. Thank you so much.
Okay, so on that note, probably we will call
Thank
it
you.
a night. Thank you so very much, Raja Karthikeya, for reading out such a lovely poems. You have a distinct style. You also have a depth in your poetry. You have conveyed and evoked some of these experiences. So thank you on behalf of Lamakaan and also on my personal behalf. Once again, a big thank you.
Thank you so much, Naeem.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for to Lamakaan, to Farhan, and everyone who helped make this happen, and to all my friends and family who came here today, and to all of you wonderful guests. Thank you so much. There are a few copies if you'd like to pick up. Please do. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope we'll be in touch.